boys and girls. Are you ready for a story? Today, I think we'll read a story about frogs. There's lots to learn about frogs. Now, some stories are just fiction. They're stories someone made up. They want to tell us something. But today we're going to read from an author whose name is Gail Gibbons. We've read some of her books before. And Gail Gibbons' book, entitled Frogs, is going to teach us some facts about frogs. What kind of book is it? Yes, it's a paperback, but it's also nonfiction. It's a great way to learn new things. And when you're writing books, it's a great way to teach people new things. So keep that in mind as we read this book by Gail Gibbons. I love her books. We did one about pumpkins. We've read several of them. And her photos are always so nice and bright. And it says, it is springtime in a pond. That's right. The habitat for a frog is a pond. A jelly-like cluster of eggs floats among the water weeds at the pond's surface. These are the beginnings of Frogs by Gail Gibbons. That's quite a title page, isn't it? A breeze ripples the surface. The floating clump of eggs is called frog spawn. Frogs lay their eggs in water or wet places. Otherwise, the eggs could dry up and die. These eggs do not have shells. They are inside jelly-like coverings. So all around the edges, like really jelly, squishy, soft. Not like the chicken eggs in your refrigerator. As they float, the jelly lets the sun's warmth come through the eggs inside. Not all the eggs will survive. Most of the time, the large and slimy mass of eggs is too slippery and too big to be eaten. This is nature's way of protecting them. But some of the smaller clusters of eggs will be eaten by creatures living or in the pond. Fish like to eat frog spawn, frog eggs. They can't get their mouth around the big clumps. Nature's protection. The dark centers of the eggs slowly grow into frog embryos. The embryos grow until they look like small tadpoles. Tadpoles are frog babies. As they grow, they feed off their own egg yolks. The tadpoles grow until they are big enough to break free into the water. It can take from 3 days to 3 weeks for this to happen, depending on what kind of frogs they will become. One by one, the tadpoles hatch from their eggs. They each have a head, tail, and body. The tadpoles wiggle their tails to swim. The tadpoles breathe by getting air from the water through feathery outside gills. As they swim, they eat very small plants that stick to larger water plants. These tiny plants are called algae. They use water, they breathe, they use food, they move, they grow and change, so they must be living. 1 week later, the tadpoles look different. They are bigger. Their gills begin to shrink. A flap of skin slowly grows over them. The tadpoles' mouths become hard with tiny teeth in their upper jaws. Now the tadpoles are 1 month old. Their outside gills have disappeared. New gills inside the tadpoles take oxygen from the water. Their tails are wider for stronger swimming. Something wonderful begins to happen. At the base of their tails, bulges appear. This is where their hind legs are growing. Bulges are little bumps. That's where the legs are coming. At 2 months old, the tadpoles dart about the pond as they eat. They are still vegetarians. Vegetarians only eat plant life. The tadpoles get bigger. Now they have hind legs. Behind their heads, bulges appear where their front legs are growing. Their tails become smaller. The tadpoles' gills inside their bodies are gone. They have grown lungs to use for breathing. Now and then they wiggle to the surface to breathe in air. The tadpoles are about 3 months old. Again, they look different. They have front legs. Their tails are even smaller. They have shed their tadpole skin and lips. At last, they have the wide mouths of frogs. The tadpoles have become tiny frogs. They climb out of the pond and onto the land. Their tails will become smaller and smaller until they finally disappear. The tiny frogs begin to eat insects and worms. They aren't vegetarians anymore because they're eating meat. Frogs are amphibians. The word amphibian comes from a Greek word that means 2 lives. An amphibian can live on land or in the water. Frogs are cold-blooded. That means their inside body temperatures are about the same as the outside temperature. During the next few years, the tiny frogs will grow to be mature frogs. Then they will be able to make their own frog spawn, and there will be new baby frogs. So they make more like themselves. Frogs have many body parts. Back legs, skin, 5 toes, webbed feet, front leg, 4 toes. The tongue is attached to the front of the mouth and it is sticky so it can catch flies. Frogs don't hunt for food. Their big eyes are on top of their heads so they can see all the way around. They stay very still, and when something flies or crawls nearby, their long sticky tongues dart out and catch it. They swallow their food whole. Frogs that swim use their powerful hind legs and webbed feet to push them through the water. Frogs have 2 sets of eyelids. One set is transparent. That means they can see through it. So that they can see through. When frogs dive, they close these eyelids to protect their eyes. On land, the frogs hop about. They use their very strong hind legs to leap. Most frogs can leap 10 times their body strength. They are wonderful jumpers. Frogs have enemies. Foxes, snakes, rats, birds, and other creatures eat frogs when they can catch them. A sudden leap is a quick escape from danger. For protection, some frogs have skin glands that make them taste bad or make them poisonous. Sometimes their skin color hides them from enemies. This is called camouflage. Croak. Frogs make different sounds. When frogs force the air out of their air sacs and into their lungs, the air passes over their vocal cords, which vibrate to make sounds. They make different calls that mean different things, and sometimes frogs are very loud. Where it is cold in the winter, the frogs go to sleep. Sometimes they find sheltered hollows. What do we call it when they go to sleep all winter? Here's the big word, hibernation. Often frogs dig into the muddy bottom of a pond. All winter they sleep covered with mud. They stay completely motionless. Ready? This is called hibernation. In the springtime, when the sun begins to warm up the ground and the pond's water, the frogs come out of hibernation. They are healthy and hungry. People who know a lot about frogs are called herpetologists. They spend lots of time watching and waiting to learn more about these animals. Experts tell us that there are more than 3,800 kinds of frogs. This is a frog. They live in the pond. This is a toad. A toad lives on land. I love these books by Gail Gibbons. We're talking lots about frogs. I hope you saw some things you knew, and I hope you learned some things you didn't. We'll see you next time, boys and girls.